Well, good morning, everyone, and hope you're having a great start to your day. We sure appreciate you guys coming on. Have you had your coffee yet? I'm just having another cup, and we'll say hello to a few friends here this morning. As you get your notifications. Okay, there's Brahim. Good morning, Brahim, Portland, Oregon, Andrea, Niagara Falls, Mike from Norland. The Trinity is up as usual. Lynn from Aurora. Lynn, you're getting right near that top. And we love you too, Brahim, very much. Carol, West Virginia. Kevin, Oshawa, good morning to you. Madeleine, Kippawa, Quebec, bonjour. Nelly, good morning. Nativity, good morning to you. Fran, Orangeville. Dear friends, Doc McEwen, how are you, my dear friend? From West Tennessee. Lise, how are you? Nick from our staff. Nick is back from Scotland. Wendy from Markham. Marlene, Yolande, all dear friends to the program. What would we do without you? Elaine. Tina, Nova Scotia, good morning. Hi, Cindy from Saskatchewan. Lisa Marie, good morning. Lorna from Calgary. How are you, Lorna? Linda, New Brunswick. Keith, how are you? Lorraine, good morning from British Columbia. And Milika from Stouffville. Patricia, good morning. Jill, Medicine Hat. Lise, how are you from Sudbury? Karen, Peterborough. And let's see, Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine. And Leela, Manitoulin Island. Rhoda. Patricia having her coffee, yeah, like me. Deb from Timmins. Nativity, we love you dearly. Rain Cloud. She's on the treadmill. Diane. LaSalle. John, how are you? Helen. And Catherine. Springdale. I think some of you watch this program when you're on. Hi, Sue. Hi, Sandy from Vancouver, Washington. Denise, I think some of you watch the program. Hi, Vonda. On your treadmill while you're doing it. Hi, Dave. Hi, Elaine. And Dave from Muskoka. Donna, Newfoundland. Couple of more. Sue, how are you on Manitoulin Island? Luella, West Tennessee. Arlene, good morning. Bonnie. Little Britain and Marine out in Penticton, British Columbia. Laurie. Judy, New Brunswick. Nina from Chatham. And Marl from Ottawa. Cheryl, how are you? And Jude from Troy, New York. Joanne, Berks Falls. Etta. Okay, two more. Sharon, she's had 2 cups of coffee. And Susan from Cape Breton. Okay, what I want to talk to you a little bit about this morning, a new study that came out on cortisol. Okay? Now, you know what cortisol is. Your adrenals secrete cortisol. And cortisol is a hormone. And it's very much involved in your life. You don't even think about it until it goes south. And what do I mean by that? Well, cortisol is involved in getting you up in the morning. That's normal. It elevates your blood pressure. It elevates your blood sugar. It starts to wake you up. And cortisol sort of follows what we call a circadian rhythm during the day. So high in the morning, starts to level off, and then by nighttime, or at least it should be down to very low levels because your body's getting ready to go to sleep. Now in the world in which you and I live today, that is what is such a big problem. It's such a big problem, okay? And the reason is because the world is sort of upside down. There's so much stress. Now, in our newsletters, we talk about getting chased by a lion, okay? And it's kind of funny because if you got chased by a lion, your cortisol would be through the roof because it's a big part of your adrenaline. It's a big part of your fight and flight, right? So if a lion is chasing you, you ain't fighting, you're running. And you ain't outrunning the lion, okay? But what we were saying in newsletters is your body can't differentiate between a lion, okay, attacking you, where you're like this, or you're under a lot of stress from the environment, the family dynamics, relationships, worry, of finances, all of the above. Your body doesn't differentiate that. It just secretes high levels of cortisol to keep you in the fight or flight. If you're in the fight or flight, you're not resting or digesting. So what does that mean? Well, the number one issue with cortisol, the number one problem really with cortisol, more than anything else, is sleep. Because if your cortisol is high, you're going to have trouble sleeping. If you're having trouble sleeping, your cortisol is high. So you're in a vicious cycle, and millions of North Americans fight that every day. Now, let me just talk about cortisol and sleep for a minute. What cortisol does, and we didn't even know this before, okay? Because I've been studying cortisol for a long time. Anybody that's followed me over the years, let me just grab you a book, okay? I'll grab you a book. Here's one. Chronic Fatigue. Here is it in for my Quebec viewers, okay? La syndrome de la fatigue chronique puis fibromyalgie. And here was my thesis. When I got my PhD, I wrote my thesis. I even have my thesis with me. Here it is. Okay? And this is in 1996. Chronic fatigue syndrome, free radical damage. Okay? Now what I put in here and what I put in these books, okay, was the number one thing with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, which I believe, and I think I can prove it, are, two sides of the same coin. Chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, it is adrenal gland exhaustion from secreting way too much cortisol over a long period of time. That's how you get, in my opinion, that's how you got chronic fatigue, because way back in the day, they were saying, well, it was the yuppie flu, it was the Epstein-Barr virus, it was, most doctors thought it was in between people's ears because they didn't know how to diagnose it. And they didn't know what to do about it. And I was talking about it years and years before mainstream medicine even agreed that it could probably be a condition. I wrote about it. I studied it. I was looking at cortisol levels way back when. And that was very much involved. Cortisol, because cortisol is on your side until you can't turn it off. And this is what I found, and it was in mostly women. It wasn't all women, but mostly women. And these people were exhausted. These people had brain fog. These people had usually fibromyalgia with a lot of pain, unexplained. A lot of inflammation markers were prevalent. And that's what I wrote about way back when. And so I was very familiar with the adrenal glands and your stress glands, and they're good. They're on your side. They put you into the fight or flight. If someone scares you, if you're walking at night, you're walking to go out to your car at night and you hear footsteps behind you, that's cortisol is involved in that, and that's good because it'll get you to run or fight. But you don't want that to be turned on all the time. And, we talk about this on the program a lot because I wrote a book back in 2011, Serial Killers, 2 Hormones That Want You Dead. Cortisol and insulin. And it was because my practice was overwhelmed, if I can use the word, with people that had high cortisol and high insulin and developed insulin resistance. I wrote books about it. And I had a radio show. I talked about it all the time. And most people weren't that familiar with cortisol, including your doctor, because the problem with medicine, they're usually late to the dance. And when it comes to cortisol, unless you have Cushing's or Addison's diseases of the adrenal gland, they don't even measure it. They don't think of it unless you're a functional medical doctor. Cortisol, it's stress, it's life. Who cares, right? Like, it's not that serious. You're not dying, so you got a little bit of stress, deal with it. But we know that cortisol pours gasoline on the fire of inflammation. Now, we know that. And the new study that came out, we talked about this last week just for a minute. We didn't get a chance to get into it too much. Cortisol inhibits. This is hot off the presses, guys. Cortisol inhibits melatonin. Okay? What? Cortisol inhibits melatonin. So when your cortisol is up, you're not taking in the melatonin. Okay, remember now, melatonin, because people think of melatonin as a supplement, and you can get a supplement of melatonin. I'm not big on the supplement of melatonin. I'm much bigger on the sun, because the sun's out today here in Northern Ontario. And if I just look outside on a sunny day, I'm getting melatonin in my eyeballs. A dark room at night, you get melatonin. That's why we love the invisible or the sleep mask. Not the invisible mask, that's vitamin A. But we like the sleep mask, right? Why do we like the sleep mask? Because when you're in a dark, pitch black room, you're secreting much more melatonin. But one of the things that blocks melatonin is cortisol. You got to get your cortisol down. And it's not easy in this day and age, and we live in a cortisol crazy world. And a lot of that is, 24-hour media, 24-hour social media, 24-hour stress. Stress seems to be on steroids today. And we've talked about this in the past, like mental health in young people. It's incredible. The amount of young people that are on SSRIs and they're stressed to the hilt. And my dear friend there, Dr. McEwen, she'd know all about this and teaches psychology at the University of Tennessee. Knows all about this. It's an epidemic today. So cortisol, again, is on your side, guys, until it's not. And in my practice, not only chronic fatigue, but what I saw, it was almost every patient that came into my office in the year, I'm going to say around 2004, 2005, it seemed that I couldn't get over it. Like it started to affect, because we measured cortisol. We used to do a urine test for cortisol. And it was through the roof on most people. It was affecting them. And, we've talked about some of the symptoms you get of cortisol. It pours gasoline on inflammation. Some of the signs are like brain fog, belly fat. A lot of women, they're eating properly, they're doing everything right, and they got belly fat. And that can be a sign of high cortisol. And, we talk about that. And elevated blood pressure. A lot of people are walking around, their blood pressure is above normal, and it's all stress related. 2 S's, sugar and stress. Sugar will elevate your blood pressure. Stress elevates your blood pressure. It elevates your blood sugar. Remember, cortisol in the morning is getting you up in the morning. What does it do? That's why I tell people, don't tell me your blood sugar in the morning. Doc, my blood sugar is high in the morning. Why are you taking it? Don't take it in the morning first thing. Because it's supposed to be high. Your blood sugar will go up in the morning because cortisol is involved in that. But think about cortisol through the day and your blood sugar goes up. Well, what goes up must come down. So your insulin, cortisol directly affects insulin. Why? Because if it's elevating your blood sugar, well, you need insulin to bring your blood sugar down. So cortisol is very much involved in insulin resistance. You get a double whammo. And in that book, 2 Hormones That Want You Dead, I talked about the relationship of cortisol and insulin. 2 serial killers that want you dead. Insulin, over a period of time, will kill you because it's very much related to all the chronic diseases that you can think of. Okay? Think of a chronic disease. Heart disease, insulin. Diabetes, obviously, insulin. Cancer, insulin's got a big effect on that. Alzheimer's, insulin, type 3 diabetes. And remember, cortisol will pour gasoline on inflammation. So now you've got cortisol, and if you listen to most doctors, okay? I might even have a book here this morning. I'm just trying to think if I see it. Anyway, I do have a book in my library here. One of my colleagues wrote this book, The Inflammation Cure. But they relate inflammation to being at the root of all chronic disease. Okay, so I mentioned heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, autoimmune, diabetes, all the big ones. These doctors think, well, one good thing, I like it because they're thinking outside the box. Say, well, inflammation's involved. When you got damaged blood vessels, but inflammation's, you know what we say on this program all the time. Inflammation's not Houdini. It takes insulin. Insulin resistance, that causes inflammation. Leaky gut, that causes inflammation. Okay? So when you have the root cause, you can do something about it. And then cortisol pours gasoline on the fire of inflammation. So, and I talked about this in many, many programs over the years. I wrote about it in several of my books. Cortisol and cancer. Breast cancer, ladies, almost invariably, breast cancer, it's estrogen driven. Oh, my doctor said it's not estrogen driven. Look, I'm telling you, it's always estrogen driven. But it's also, cortisol is very much involved because when stress, think of it, you're running from a lion. Your body's not thinking about your immune system. It's thinking about survival. So immune system, that gets laid aside. So when your cortisol's high all the time, your immune system doesn't work properly. And for cancer, you need your T cells. You need them to be operating properly. You want your immune system to be at its highest level. That's how you fight cancer. It's one of the biggest things you can do to fight cancer. Keep your immune system at the top of its game. Well, when cortisol's high, you're not at the top of your game. You can't be. You're in the fight or flight. And you guys know this. We talk about rest and digest. You need to be resting and sleeping properly in order for your brain. So when it comes to Alzheimer's, elevated blood sugar for sure. But the other thing is you're not detoxing properly. One of the biggest things in your immune system, your T cells, your Navy SEALs, for sure. But the other factor is the detoxification process. If you're not sleeping properly, your glymphatic, your self-cleaning oven in your brain's not even working properly. That's a major factor in Alzheimer's. Your liver, which is your detoxification organ, numero uno, even ahead of your kidneys and your lungs. You detoxify, but not if your cortisol's high. And most people, not all people, but most people, they're walking around today with a liver that's full of fat because of their diet, full of sugar and crappy carbohydrates. Now their liver's gummed up. They don't detoxify properly. Then their cortisol is high. They don't detoxify properly. They don't sleep properly. They don't make enough melatonin to get into a good REM sleep, the 5 stages of sleep that one needs. So it's such a vicious cycle. It's such a vicious cycle. And it's difficult enough to navigate in this day and age. Like, we live in a world that's different. Everything is fast, high speed. You know, there's a lot of progress in the world. I mean, like when I can't even wrap my head around AI. Can you? I can hardly wrap my head around it. I know nothing about it, like other than it's scary to me. We live in a world like, are you kidding me? AI. But there, you know, a lot of things are happening, right? A lot of things are happening in the world, like just the technology. And you know me, I can't keep up, that's for sure. I have a hard enough time producing this program. Like, I am so technology compromised. I can't keep up. But like, my son has me laughing all the time because he's such an expert on all these new techs, and including AI. My word. But you see, the other side of that is cortisol. The other side of that is stress. And you need to do everything you can to get your cortisol under control, because it has such a detrimental effect on our bodies. Okay. So we got a lot of studies that are coming out. Some very, very interesting. I think you'll find them interesting. I certainly find them fascinating. I love to keep you up to date on that. And then remember, Friday is what? Question and answer. Your Q&A time. It often runs into Monday, Q&A. Okay? And you've asked such good questions. I love it. Okay? I love it. So, you know, we're not scared of your questions. We love your questions. We invite your questions. Question me. Okay? We love that. So that's on Friday. So send your questions in ahead of time to info@Martin Clinic. Sometimes you put a question right here. Okay? And you know what, guys? First of all, once I start the program, I don't see the scroll hardly at all. Okay? I can't focus in on the scroll, and hey, I'm a senior. I can't do both. So if you ask a question here, please, okay, would you please send it to info@martinclinic.com? Because if you send it there, I'm going to answer it. If you keep it here, you put the question in the scroll, a lot of times I don't even see it, guys. I'm not going to answer what I can't see. And usually if I have something in my head and I'm trying to get it out, you don't want to sidetrack me, because I'll get on a rabbit trail and I'll never come back. Okay? I'll never come back. Okay. So guys, send in your questions. We love you dearly and sincerely. And you're the best audience in the world. That's number one. And you've made this program, The Doctor Is In, the #1 health podcast and broadcast in Canada. Now let's make it #1 in the USA too. Why not? I can't see why not. Now you guys do that. Okay? You do it by liking on Facebook, on your smart device. Download the Doctors In podcast. You can re-listen to this podcast. I know I speak fast. Okay? But we love you dearly. If you don't get our emails, okay, then sign up at martinclinic.com. Our sponsor. Okay. We love you. We'll talk to you soon.